Compass FM. Victoria Thompson is with Bowel Cancer New Zealand. In fact, she is in the Nurse Support and Wellbeing Department. She's the coordinator, actually, and a very good morning to you, Victoria.
Good morning.
I was just telling you off air, actually, that I received one of these kits. If you're over 60, I believe, you can expect to receive a kit in the post, and this is about catching bowel cancer early. And in my case, actually, I returned it positive, and I've got to go and have is it a colonoscopy?
Colonoscopy.
See, it's all new to me, but I just want to say I think that's fantastic because it's all about catching it early. I'm not suggesting for a moment that I have bowel cancer, but it's a great idea, isn't it, Victoria?
It is, and the fact that it's nationwide and it is for 60 to 74-year-olds, I mean, it's just brilliant that, we have this kind of scheme in New Zealand.
Absolutely, and I'm really appreciative. I think it's a fantastic initiative. Tell us a little bit about your role at Bowel Cancer New Zealand. What exactly do you do, Victoria?
Well, I have a very varied role. As you mentioned, I'm the nurse support, so I'm at the end of the telephone. I'm also looking after our Facebook pages. We have an incredibly active Facebook group for New Zealand people who've been diagnosed or who are looking after people. I also look after the little chat that pops up on our website. I have an email that I look after. I also have the distinct privilege and honour of being able to go into workplaces and community groups to do education on bowel cancer, its risks, the symptoms, and, kind of a little bit about what we do. So I have an incredibly varied role, which I love. We are a charity that goes from the tippy top of the North Island to the absolute bottom of the South Island. So we cover a big lot of area.
You certainly do. So you've got a big job and it's a big subject. I mean, just referring back to getting those kits in the post, that indicates to me that it's quite a problem here in New Zealand. Do we have an overly high incidence rate? I mean, would you say it's almost prolific bowel cancer in this country?
Unfortunately, we do have quite a high rate of bowel cancer. We're one of the highest in the developed world, unfortunately, and it is the second highest cause of cancer death in New Zealand, and that's second only to lung cancer. So it is a big deal here. We have about just over 3,000, about 3,200 people diagnosed every year, and about 10% of those are under 50. So it is growing, unfortunately, and it is incredibly preventable. And although at Bowel Cancer New Zealand we are separate from the ministry-run screening program, we are absolutely 100% behind it and are fully supportive of that program being out there.
Just quickly, can you identify a couple of reasons as to why, we have such a high rate of bowel cancer in this country?
Oh, there's the $64 million question.
Yeah, I thought it's a subject in itself, I'm sure, but it's a bit like, melanoma, the highest rate in the world, bowel cancer. Why poor little old New Zealand, you know what I mean? But is it to do with our diet?
Oh, look, there's so many factors that are involved in it. Diet is absolutely probably one of them, but it's also, lifestyle. It comes down to environmental factors. There's a genetic role in it. And I think sometimes, let's face it, bottoms aren't quite as sexy as other things to talk about at dinner time.
Yeah, there is that aspect, isn't there?
Yeah, and, they also tend to be very hidden, whereas some of the other cancers are a little bit easier to detect.
Yeah.
So that is part of it, but it's one of those things that, there's no one specific thing that gives us, anything over anything else. It's a cancer that's just, I think, a little bit hidden. So it does get in there and does get up.
Yeah, and it's all about catching it early, of course, to get the best results. So what should we be looking out for? And feel free, I mean, it's a mucky subject, but give us your best, Victoria. What are the symptoms of bowel cancer?
Okay. The things to look for generally is one thing to keep in mind is always go with your gut. If you think something's wrong, you're probably right. So if there's any sort of bleeding, so when you're wiping after going to the toilet and you notice any blood, that needs to be investigated. If you've got changes in any of the way that you go to the toilet, if it's more frequent, if it's less frequent, if it's bigger, if it's smaller, if it's changes in any way, and that's over several weeks or a couple of months. Anemia, so when you've got really low iron levels in your blood, and particularly for men, it generally shows that there's bleeding going on somewhere. If you've got abdominal pain, so anything that just kind of doesn't go away and it's not related to some dodgy food you ate in the weekend, that's another one to kind of keep an eye out for. If you notice that there's any kind of lumps in your tummy, or if you're just feeling really tired and you're losing weight but you're not trying to, those are the main ones we're looking for and that you should be talking to your usual doctor about. Yeah. Sometimes, they are related to other issues that aren't bowel cancer, but it's absolutely worth getting all of these looked into earlier. Bowel cancer is actually preventable and it's actually treatable when it's caught really, really early. So, yeah.
Yep. Well, that's what it's all about, getting it early. So let's say if there's bright red, healthy-looking blood in the bowl, as opposed to, maybe dark, blacker sort of a colour. The bright, fresh blood might be a symptom of, other things, could be hemorrhoids or whatever, but are we looking for any change at all? If there's blood there, get to your doctor. Is that right?
Absolutely. Any blood, and as you say, whether that's darker or whether it's bright red, go and get that checked out by your GP and get onto it pretty quickly. Yep.
Hey, Victoria, just quickly, how does Bowel Cancer New Zealand provide support? So, in other words, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, we've got so many channels that people can get hold of us. I have an 0800 phone number, which is 0800 BCNZ Nurse. Nice and easy to remember. We have the little chat, like I mentioned, on all of our website pages, and people can contact me that way. They can email here for you at bowelcancernz.org.nz, and they can also just reach out via our main Facebook page.
In other words, the usual ways, but you're there, you're available. And Victoria Thompson, everybody, from Bowel Cancer New Zealand, Nurse Support and Wellbeing Coordinator. And as Victoria has pointed out, if you notice any changes, get onto it fast. It's all about catching it quickly, catching it early and beating it.
Compass FM.